You lose tomorrow tonight? The chaos you wake up to, the distractions that derail you, the lack of focus that destroys your productivity, all of it was decided by what you did or didn't do the evening before. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They didn't just think about philosophy. They practiced evening rituals that prepared their minds and environments for victory the next day. This audiobook contains 10 evening habits based on Stoic principles that will give you complete control over tomorrow before it even begins. You will not react to the day. You will dominate it because you prepared for it the night before. Chapter 1. Evening Reflection, the Stoic Practice of Daily Review. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, ended every day the same way. Not with entertainment, not with distraction, with systematic reflection on his actions, decisions, and alignment with his principles. This wasn't casual thinking. This was deliberate examination. What did I do well today? What did I do poorly? Where did I fail to live according to my values? Where did I succeed? Seneca did the same. He wrote that every evening, after his wife had fallen asleep, he would examine his entire day, not to torture himself with regret, but to learn, to identify patterns, to ensure that tomorrow would be better than today, because today's lessons were consciously processed and integrated. This is evening reflection, and it's the foundation of the Stoic evening routine. Most people end their days unconsciously. They drift from activity to distraction to sleep, without ever pausing to ask whether the day reflected who they want to be. Without examination, there's no learning. Without learning, every day repeats the same mistakes. You're busy, but not improving. Active, but not progressing. The Stoics rejected this. They treated every day as raw material for growth, but only if you process the material, only if you extract the lessons. Only if you examine what happened with enough clarity to change what happens tomorrow. Evening reflection is this processing, this extraction, this examination. Here's how it works. Before sleep, you review your day through 3 specific questions. These questions were used by the Stoics, and they remain the most effective framework for daily improvement. Question 1. What did I do well today that I should repeat? This isn't about inflating your ego. This is about identifying successful patterns so you can reinforce them. Maybe you started work immediately instead of checking your phone. Maybe you had a difficult conversation you'd been avoiding. Maybe you kept your calm when someone tested your patience. Whatever you did well, you name it, you acknowledge it, you decide to repeat it tomorrow. This conscious recognition strengthens the behavior. You're training your brain to recognize what good looks like so it can replicate it. Most people only notice what they did wrong. They end the day cataloging failures. This creates a negative feedback loop. You focus on mistakes. You feel bad about yourself. You lose confidence. You perform worse tomorrow. The Stoics were smarter than this. They balanced the examination. Yes, identify what went wrong, but also identify what went right. Both are equally important for improvement. Question 2. What did I do poorly that I must correct? Now you examine the failures. The moments you reacted when you should have responded. The times you chose easy over necessary. The instances where you violated your own principles. Be specific. I wasted time isn't useful. I spent 90 minutes on social media between 2 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. when I should have been working on the proposal is useful. Specificity allows correction. Vagueness just creates guilty feelings without behavioral change. The Stoics weren't gentle with themselves during this examination. Marcus Aurelius called himself out harshly in his private journals. But the harshness wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. You cannot fix what you won't name honestly, so you name it. You look directly at where you fell short, not to feel bad, but to create the specific awareness that prevents repetition. And here's the critical part. You identify the specific correction for tomorrow. If you wasted 90 minutes on social media, the correction isn't waste less time. The correction is phone goes in another room during work hours. Specific problem. Specific solution. Question 3. What opportunity did I miss to practice virtue, and how will I recognize it tomorrow? This is the most sophisticated of the 3 questions. The Stoics believed that every day presents opportunities to practice courage, discipline, justice, and wisdom. Most of these opportunities go unrecognized. You encounter them and walk past without noticing. Evening reflection trains you to notice. Maybe someone was rude to you and you responded with rudeness instead of recognizing the opportunity to practice equanimity. Maybe you had a chance to speak truth but chose comfortable silence instead of recognizing the opportunity to practice courage. Maybe you saw someone struggling and walked past instead of recognizing the opportunity to practice compassion. These aren't failures in the same way as scrolling social media for 90 minutes. These are missed opportunities for growth, and the only way to stop missing them is to train yourself to recognize them. So you identify one opportunity you missed today, and you describe what the virtuous response would have been, and you commit to recognizing that same type of opportunity tomorrow. This is how the Stoics turned ordinary days into training grounds. Every interaction became practice. Every challenge became opportunity. Every day made them better than the day before. But only because they examined the day consciously every evening. The implementation is simple. 10 minutes before bed, a journal or notebook. Write your answers to the 3 questions. Actually write them. Don't just think about them. Writing forces clarity that thinking allows you to avoid. 3 to 5 sentences per question. You're not writing an essay. You're processing the day and extracting lessons. This practice feels awkward initially. You won't know what to write. You'll struggle to identify what went well or poorly. You'll miss the opportunities to practice virtue because you're not trained to see them yet. That's normal. The practice itself builds the awareness. After 1 week, you'll start noticing patterns. After 2 weeks, you'll start catching yourself during the day. This is one of those opportunities I keep missing in my evening reflection. After 30 days, the awareness becomes automatic. And here's what changes. Your days stop being random. They become coherent. Each day builds on the lessons of the previous day. You're not repeating the same mistakes indefinitely. You're learning from them and evolving past them. This is the compounding power of evening reflection. One day's examination creates slightly better behavior tomorrow. Tomorrow's examination creates slightly better behavior the next day. Over months, this compounds into transformation that appears to others as sudden, but was actually systematic. The Stoics built greatness through this daily practice, not through dramatic changes, through small, examined, corrected improvements every single day. 10 minutes of evening reflection, 3 questions, honest answers, written down. That's how you turn today's experiences into tomorrow's improvement. Every decision you make costs something. The Stoics understood this. They practiced premeditatio malorum, premeditation of adversity too. Prepare their responses in advance so they wouldn't waste mental energy deciding in the moment. The evening preparation ritual applies this same principle to logistics. You eliminate tomorrow's trivial decisions tonight, so tomorrow's mental energy is reserved for what actually matters. Here's what most people don't understand about willpower and decision-making. You wake up with a finite amount of mental energy. Every decision you make depletes it, and the depletion is cumulative throughout the day. This means your first decisions of the day are the most important ones to protect. These decisions happen when your mental energy is highest, your focus is sharpest, your discipline is strongest. But most people waste this precious resource on trivial decisions. What should I wear? What should I eat for breakfast? Where should I start working? What's the most important task today? Each of these decisions feels small, but each one depletes the mental resource you need for important work. By the time you sit down to do something that actually matters, you've already burned through your best energy on decisions that could have been made the night before. The Stoics wouldn't tolerate this waste. They valued mental clarity too highly to squander it on trivialities, so they prepared. They made the trivial decisions in advance. They eliminated the decision points that didn't require peak mental energy. This is the evening preparation ritual, and it's shockingly simple. First, lay out tomorrow's clothes. Tonight, completely. Not just your shirt. Your entire outfit, including shoes. Everything you need to get dressed in the morning should be ready and waiting. This feels unnecessary to most people. How much energy does choosing clothes actually take? More than you think. Especially if you have options. Especially if you care how you look. Especially if part of your brain starts judging each choice. Is this too formal? Too casual? Did I just wear this? Does this match? These micro-deliberations feel trivial, but they're burning mental energy at the exact moment you should be protecting it most carefully. When your clothes are laid out, you don't deliberate. You dress, no decisions, no energy depleted. You've preserved your mental clarity for what matters. Second, prepare breakfast. Not just decide what you'll eat. Actually prepare it to the extent possible the night before. If you eat eggs, get the pan out. If you have coffee, set up the machine. If you have a smoothie, pre-portion the ingredients. Whatever you eat, minimize the decisions and actions required in the morning. Again, this feels like over-optimization. But morning is when your discipline is highest. This is when you should be using that discipline for important work, not for deciding between oatmeal and eggs. Third, write your top 3 priorities for tomorrow on paper, where you'll see them immediately upon waking. Not a long to-do list. 3 specific outcomes that would make tomorrow successful. These are your non-negotiables. Everything else is secondary. When you wake up and see these priorities immediately, you start the day with clarity. You know exactly what victory looks like. You don't waste mental energy figuring out where to start or what matters most. You already decided that last night. You just execute. Fourth, organize your workspace tonight. So when you sit down to work tomorrow, you can start immediately. Close all unnecessary browser tabs. Clear your desk of everything except what you need for your first task. Put your phone in another room. Remove all friction between sitting down and starting productive work. Most people sit down to work and then spend 20 minutes clearing space, finding files, figuring out what they should work on, checking messages, getting distracted. By the time they actually start working, their peak mental energy is gone. They're already depleted. They're starting from a disadvantaged position. When your workspace is prepared the night before, you sit down and immediately engage with important work. No warm-up, no transition, no depletion. You're using peak mental energy for peak performance. This entire preparation ritual takes 15 minutes. 15 minutes tonight buys you 2 hours of protected focus tomorrow morning. That's not an exaggeration. That's the actual exchange rate. Because when you eliminate decision fatigue, when you remove friction, when you create immediate clarity, you preserve the mental resources that most people waste before they even start working. The Stoics were strategic about energy allocation. They didn't treat all hours as equal. They knew morning clarity was precious and evening hours were less critical. So they used evening hours for preparation that protected morning hours for execution. This is intelligent resource management. you're using low value time to protect high value time. You're making easy decisions at night so you can make important decisions in the morning. Most people do the opposite. They drift through their evenings without preparation. Then they wake up and immediately start making trivial decisions that drain the mental energy they need for important work. This is backwards. This is wasteful. This is why their mornings feel scattered and their days feel reactive. You're not going to make that mistake anymore. Tonight before bed you will spend 15 minutes preparing tomorrow. Clothes laid out, breakfast prepared, priorities written, workspace organized. Tomorrow morning you will wake up to clarity instead of chaos. You will start executing immediately instead of deciding where to start. You will preserve your mental energy for what actually matters instead of depleting it on trivialities. This is how the Stoics approached their days. Not with motivation, with preparation. Not with willpower, with intelligent design. 15 minutes tonight, 2 hours of peak performance tomorrow. Make the trade every single night, and watch your mornings transform from reactive scrambling to focused domination. Chapter 3. Gratitude Practice, Training Perspective Against Complaint. The Stoics had a strange practice. They would imagine losing everything they had: their wealth, their health, their loved ones, their freedom. They called this negative visualization, and they did it regularly to remember that everything they currently possessed was a gift, not a guarantee. This wasn't pessimism. This was accurate perception. Because here's what happens to the human mind without this practice. It adapts to everything good and starts treating it as baseline. You get a promotion and feel grateful for a week. Then it becomes normal. You start a relationship and feel lucky for a month. Then you take it for granted. You achieve a goal you've been pursuing for years and celebrate briefly. Then you're already focused on the next thing you don't have. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it's one of the primary sources of human suffering. Not because life is bad, but because your mind is trained to ignore what's good and focus only on what's missing. The Stoics recognized this pattern, and they developed evening gratitude practice to counter it. This isn't the superficial gratitude you see on social media. I'm blessed. I'm grateful for everything. That's performance. That's signaling. That changes nothing. Stoic gratitude is training. You're deliberately training your mind to recognize sufficiency, to notice what's actually good in your life instead of obsessing over what's wrong or what's missing. Here's how it works. Every evening, you write down 3 specific things that went well today and why you're grateful they exist. The specificity is critical. Not, I'm grateful for my health. That's too vague. Your brain processes it as a platitude and ignores it. Instead, I'm grateful my knee didn't hurt during my run this morning, which allowed me to enjoy 30 minutes of movement without pain. That's specific. Your brain can process that. It can recognize the concrete goodness that actually exists instead of the abstract concept of health. 3 things. Every evening, with specific detail. This practice does something neurologically important. Trains your attention. Right now, your attention is probably trained to notice what went wrong, the mistake you made, the opportunity you missed, the person who annoyed you, the thing that didn't work out. Your brain is scanning for problems. This made sense. Evolutionarily, noticing threats kept you alive. But in modern life, this threat scanning creates perpetual dissatisfaction. You're alive. You're safe. Most things in your life are fine or good. But your brain is trained to ignore all of that and focus exclusively on the 5% that's wrong. Evening gratitude retrains your attention. You're forcing your brain to scan for what went right, to notice what worked, to recognize what's good. At first, this feels forced. You'll struggle to find 3 things. Your brain will resist because it's more practiced at finding problems than recognizing goodness. But after 1 week, you'll start noticing good things during the day specifically, so you can include them in your evening gratitude. Your attention is already shifting. After 2 weeks, you'll notice you're less bothered by small problems because you're more aware of the larger context of what's actually working. After 30 days, your default perception will have shifted. You'll still notice what's wrong. You're not becoming delusional, but you'll also automatically notice what's right. You'll have balanced perception instead of negatively biased perception. And balanced perception is what the Stoics called wisdom. Now here's the advanced practice. Include one challenging thing you're grateful for. This seems contradictory. How can you be grateful for something difficult or painful? But this is exactly what the Stoics practiced. Marcus Aurelius wrote about being grateful for difficult people because they gave him opportunities to practice patience. Epictetus taught gratitude for obstacles because they revealed where you needed to grow stronger. This isn't toxic positivity. This isn't pretending bad things are good. This is recognizing that difficulty creates capability, that challenges build strength, that obstacles force adaptation. When you practice gratitude for challenges, you're training resilience perspective. You're learning to see difficulty as training rather than punishment, as opportunity rather than obstacle. I'm grateful for the project deadline I missed today because it showed me I'm overcommitting and need to learn to say no. I'm grateful for the argument with my partner because it revealed a communication pattern we need to address. I'm grateful for feeling overwhelmed this afternoon because it showed me my current systems aren't scalable and need to be redesigned. This is sophisticated gratitude. You're extracting value from difficulty. You're finding the lesson in the failure. You're grateful for the information that challenges provide about where you need to improve. When you can be genuinely grateful for challenges, you become anti-fragile. Difficulty doesn't break you, it strengthens you, because you've trained yourself to extract growth from adversity. This was core Stoic teaching, amor fati, love of fate, not just acceptance of what happens, gratitude for what happens, because everything that happens is raw material for your development. But you can't think your way to this perspective. You have to train it every evening. 3 things you're grateful for, specific, detailed, including one challenge. Write them down. Don't just think them. Writing forces you to articulate clearly, and the act of writing creates neurological encoding that thinking alone doesn't produce. This practice takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes that reprogram your attention away from perpetual dissatisfaction toward recognition of what's actually good in your life. The Stoics weren't naive optimists. They recognized that life contains difficulty, pain, and loss. But they also recognized that most people suffer more from their perception of life than from life itself. You have more than you acknowledge. You're more capable than you recognize. More went right today than you noticed. And even what went wrong contained lessons that make you better. Evening gratitude trains you to see this accurately, to recognize sufficiency, to notice goodness, to extract value from difficulty. 5 minutes, 3 specific things, 1 challenge reframed. Every evening, watch your entire perception of life shift from scarcity to sufficiency, from complaint to contentment, from victim to student. That's what Stoic gratitude creates. Not fake happiness, accurate perspective. And accurate perspective is what allows you to dominate tomorrow because you're not burdened by a distorted perception of today. Chapter 4, Digital Sunset, Protecting Sleep and Reclaiming Attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote about not being enslaved by external things. He couldn't have imagined the smartphone, but his warning applies perfectly to it. Your phone has enslaved your attention. This isn't metaphor, this is literal. Your attention, your most valuable resource, your consciousness itself, is being controlled by algorithms designed specifically to capture and hold it. Every notification, every infinite scroll, every autoplay video. These are engineered addiction mechanisms, and you're addicted. Most people check their phones over 100 times per day. They reach for it unconsciously. They feel anxiety when it's not nearby. This is dependency. This is enslavement. This is exactly what the Stoics warned against. And the damage it's doing to your tomorrow is catastrophic. Here's what happens when you use your phone in the evening, especially in the 2 hours before bed. The blue light from the screen suppresses melatonin production. Melatonin is the hormone that makes you sleepy and regulates your sleep cycle. When you suppress melatonin, you delay sleep onset. You take longer to fall asleep. Your sleep quality decreases. You wake up more during the night. You get less deep sleep and less REM sleep. This means you wake up tomorrow less restored. Your cognitive function is impaired. Your emotional regulation is worse. Your decision-making is compromised. Your impulse control is reduced. All because you spent 2 hours before bed staring at a screen. But it gets worse. The content you're consuming during those evening hours is specifically designed to be stimulating, outrage, drama, novelty, dopamine hits. This stimulation activates your nervous system. Your brain is supposed to be winding down for sleep. Instead, it's being artificially activated by engineered content. So now you're suppressing melatonin and activating your nervous system. Your brain is confused. It should be preparing for sleep, but it's receiving signals that something important is happening that requires attention. This destroys your ability to fall asleep easily, and it fragments the sleep you do get. Your brain can't fully shift into restoration mode because it's still processing the stimulation from your evening screen time. Tomorrow you wake up tired, foggy, reactive, unable to focus, emotionally unstable, and you wonder why you can't dominate the day. You can't dominate the day because you destroyed tonight. And you destroyed tonight by giving your attention to your phone instead of protecting your sleep. The Stoics would see this clearly. You're sacrificing tomorrow's performance for tonight's distraction. You're trading what matters for what's easy. You're enslaved to a device that gives you nothing valuable and takes everything important. Digital sunset breaks this enslavement. Here's the protocol. 2 hours before you want to be asleep, all devices go into another room on airplane mode. Not just silenced, not just face down, physically removed from your environment and unable to receive signals. No screens for the final 2 hours of your day. No exceptions. Not just checking email real quick. Not just one video. Not just seeing if anyone texted. Complete digital abstinence for 2 hours before sleep. The first 3 nights of this are uncomfortable. You'll feel anxious. You'll think of reasons you need to check your phone. You'll be convinced you're missing something important. This is withdrawal. This is your addiction protesting the removal of its source. Push through it. The anxiety isn't real. It's chemical dependency masquerading as legitimate concern. After 3 nights, the anxiety decreases. After 1 week, you'll notice your sleep quality improving. You fall asleep faster. You sleep more deeply. You wake up more restored. After 2 weeks, you'll notice your morning focus is sharper than it's been in years. Your brain has been getting actual restorative sleep for the first time in however long you've been using screens before bed. After 30 days, you won't want to go back. The improvement in sleep quality and morning mental clarity is so obvious that voluntarily returning to evening screen time would feel obviously stupid. But here's what you need to understand. The 2 hours you reclaim from digital sunset aren't just empty time. They're the most valuable hours of your day for certain activities. This is your time for reading, physical books, not articles on screens. Actual books that require sustained attention and don't hijack your dopamine. The Stoics read philosophy every evening. Seneca would read for an hour before bed, realigning his mind with principles. Marcus Aurelius read Epictetus. This evening reading prepared their minds for sleep and for tomorrow. You can do the same. 15 to 30 minutes of reading philosophy, biography, or anything that makes you think rather than just react. This is also your time for conversation. Actual conversation with people in your physical presence, without phones, without screens, just talking. The Stoics valued dialogue as a primary form of philosophical practice. When you talk without the option to be distracted by devices, you actually connect. You actually think. You actually engage with ideas and with the people in front of you. This is also your time for planning tomorrow, writing your 3 priorities, preparing your environment, doing the preparation ritual that sets up tomorrow's victory. And this is your time for thinking, just thinking. Something that's become almost impossible in the modern world because every moment of potential thought gets interrupted by digital distraction. When you create 2 screen-free hours every evening, you reclaim the capacity to think, to process your day, to integrate what you learned, to prepare mentally for tomorrow. This is what the Stoics did. They used evening hours for contemplation, reading, conversation, and preparation. They protected these hours carefully because they understood these hours determined tomorrow. You're going to do the same. 2 hours before bed, your phone goes into another room on airplane mode. Your computer shuts down. Your TV stays off. You read, you talk, you think, you prepare, you wind down naturally. Your melatonin production isn't suppressed. Your nervous system isn't artificially activated. Your sleep quality improves. Your morning energy returns. Your mental clarity sharpens. And tomorrow you wake up with the cognitive capacity to actually dominate the day. Because you protected tonight. Because you reclaimed your attention from the devices that were stealing it. Because you refused to be enslaved by externals. Digital sunset isn't a sacrifice. It's the elimination of what was stealing from you. You're not giving up anything valuable. You're protecting what matters most. 2 hours, every night. No screens, no exceptions. This is how you protect tomorrow. This is how you reclaim your attention. This is how you stop being enslaved by the device in your pocket. The Stoics taught freedom from external control. Digital sunset is that teaching applied to modern enslavement. Practice it tonight, every night, and watch your mornings transform. Chapter 5. Contemplation of Mortality. Making Tomorrow Count. Seneca had a practice that most people would find disturbing. Every evening, he would contemplate his death, not morbidly, not with fear, but with clarity about the fact that his life would end, and he didn't know when. "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life," he wrote. "Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's account every day. This is memento mori. Remember death." And the Stoics practiced it daily, usually in the evening. Why? Because remembering death is the fastest way to gain clarity about life. Most people live as if they have infinite time. They postpone what matters. They waste energy on what doesn't. They get angry about trivial things. They avoid difficult but important conversations. They delay the work that would actually move their lives forward, not because they're lazy, but because on some unconscious level, they believe there's always tomorrow. Always next week, always next year. Time feels infinite, so urgency disappears. The Stoics knew this was delusion. Time isn't infinite, your life will end, and you don't know when. This isn't pessimism, this is reality. And when you face this reality clearly, it changes everything about how you approach tomorrow. Evening mortality contemplation asks you to face this reality, to imagine concretely that you could die tomorrow, or next week, or next month, that this day you just lived could have been your last. When you imagine this, really imagine it, not just think about it abstractly. Something shifts. Suddenly the things you were angry about today seem absurd. Someone cut you off in traffic. A colleague made a thoughtless comment. Your lunch order was wrong. These things consumed mental energy and emotional bandwidth, but from the perspective of your deathbed, they're completely irrelevant. They don't matter at all. They never mattered. You just thought they did because you weren't remembering that your time is finite. Mortality contemplation reveals the insignificance of most of what you worry about, get angry about, and spend time on. But it does something else equally important. It reveals the significance of what you're avoiding. That difficult conversation you keep postponing. That creative work you're scared to start. That relationship you need to repair. That risk you need to take. That truth you need to speak. From the perspective of unlimited time, you can always do these things later. But from the perspective of limited time, from the reality that you could die tomorrow later becomes obviously inadequate. If you knew you'd die next week, would you still postpone the difficult conversation? Would you still avoid the creative work? Would you still delay the risk? Of course not. You'd do it immediately. Because you'd recognize that time is the constraint, and these things matter enough to prioritize. This is what mortality contemplation gives you. Clarity about what actually matters and urgency to act on it. The Stoics didn't contemplate death to be morbid. They contemplated death to live better, to make better use of their time, to focus on what actually mattered instead of what was merely urgent or comfortable or easy. Here's the evening practice. 2 minutes, that's all this takes. 2 minutes of focused visualization. Close your eyes. Imagine you've just been told you'll die tomorrow. Not how you'll die, that's not relevant. Just that your life will end tomorrow. Really imagine this. Feel what it would be like to know with certainty that this is your last night alive. From this perspective, ask yourself 2 questions. First, if I died tomorrow, would today's actions reflect what actually matters to me? Be honest. Did you spend today on what's important or what's trivial? Did you have the conversations that matter or avoid them? Did you do the work that moves your life forward or distract yourself with what's easy? This question reveals the gap between your stated values and your actual behavior, between who you want to be and who you currently are. The gap is usually uncomfortable to acknowledge, but acknowledging it is necessary if you want to close it. Second question, given that I will die eventually, and I don't know when, what must I do tomorrow? Not what should you do? What must you do? What's so important that postponing it is no longer acceptable? What matters enough that you need to prioritize it tomorrow regardless of what else demands your attention? This question creates urgency, not artificial urgency from deadlines or pressure. Real urgency from recognition of finite time. When you know you'll die someday and you don't know when certain things become non-negotiable, you must have that conversation, you must start that work, you must take that risk, you must speak that truth, not because you want to, because time is finite, and these things matter enough to prioritize before time runs out. This clarity persists into tomorrow. When you wake up, you're not wondering what to do, you already know. You identified it last night during mortality contemplation. And when distractions or trivialities try to steal your attention, you have a clear filter. Does this matter from my deathbed? Will I care about this when I'm dying? If no, it doesn't deserve your time today. If yes, it's non-negotiable. This filter eliminates enormous amounts of wasted energy. Most of what consumes your time doesn't pass the deathbed test. Most of what angers you is irrelevant from that perspective. Most of what you worry about doesn't matter in the context of mortality. Mortality contemplation strips away the trivial and reveals the essential. And when you know what's essential, you can organize tomorrow around it instead of reacting to whatever demands attention loudest. But here's the practice that makes this sustainable. You're not trying to live every day as if it's your last. That's exhausting and impractical. You're using mortality contemplation as a calibration tool. Every evening you remember you will die. You use that remembrance to identify what matters most. You commit to prioritizing that tomorrow. Then you go to sleep and wake up focused on what actually matters, not with panicked urgency, with calm clarity, because you've separated what's essential from what's trivial through the ultimate filter, mortality. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This isn't about fear. This is about honesty. You could die tomorrow." That's true whether you acknowledge it or not. The Stoics chose to acknowledge it, to use it, to let it focus their lives on what actually mattered. 2 minutes every evening. Imagine your death. Ask what must be done tomorrow. Let the answer guide you. This practice makes you take tomorrow seriously, not in the way deadlines make you stressed, in the way mortality makes you focused, on what matters, on what won't matter on your deathbed. Tomorrow could be your last day. You don't know. So use it well, and tonight, prepare to use it well by remembering that it matters, because time is finite. That's what mortality contemplation gives you. Not fear, not stress, clarity, focus, urgency about what matters, and indifference about what doesn't. Practice it tonight, every night, and watch how it transforms tomorrow from a day you'll waste to a day you'll use well. Chapter 6. Physical Reset. Movement to clear mental residue. The Stoics didn't separate mind and body. They understood what modern neuroscience has confirmed. A tense body creates a tense mind. A stagnant body creates a stagnant mind. And an activated body that never discharges its activation creates restless sleep and scattered thinking. You've been sitting most of the day. Even if you exercised this morning, you've probably spent the last 8 hours mostly sedentary, sitting in meetings, sitting at your desk, sitting in your car, sitting at dinner. Your body has accumulated tension. Your muscles are tight. Your nervous system is still activated from the day's stress. Your circulation is sluggish. Your breathing is shallow. And now you're going to go directly from this state to trying to sleep. Your body hasn't received the signal that the activity cycle is complete. Your nervous system doesn't know it's time to shift into recovery mode. So you'll lie in bed with your mind racing, your body restless, unable to settle, unable to sleep deeply even when you do fall asleep. This is why you need an evening physical reset, not exercise for fitness, movement for discharge, for completion, for signaling to your body that the day is done and recovery can begin. The Stoics walked. Every evening after dinner, they would walk. Not for exercise, for thinking, for processing, for movement that allowed their bodies to release the day's accumulated tension. Seneca wrote about his evening walks as essential to his philosophical practice. The movement cleared his mind. It allowed him to think more clearly. It prepared his body for sleep. You can do the same. 20 minutes of walking is the simplest and most effective physical reset. Outside if possible, fresh air, natural environment, no headphones, no podcasts, no music, just walking and thinking. This isn't wasted time. This is processing time. Your best thinking often happens while walking, because the rhythm of movement helps your brain organize thoughts. The physical activity discharges nervous system activation. The change of environment shifts your mental state. You're not trying to solve problems during this walk. You're allowing your brain to process the day naturally. Thoughts will arise. Observations will occur. Ideas will surface. Let them. Don't force them. Just walk and notice what your mind does when you give it space without distraction. After 20 minutes, your body is moved enough to signal completion. Your nervous system has discharged enough activation to allow rest. Your circulation has improved. Your breathing has deepened. Your mind has processed thoughts that would have otherwise kept you awake. But maybe you can't walk. Maybe it's too late, too dark, too cold, too unsafe. Then the alternative is stretching. 10 minutes of deliberate stretching focused on areas that hold tension. For most people, this means neck, shoulders, hips, and lower back. This isn't athletic stretching for flexibility. This is tension release. You're finding the tight spots and giving them attention, breathing into them, allowing them to soften. Your body has been holding stress as physical tension all day. If you don't release it, you carry it into sleep. And tension during sleep prevents deep rest. Your muscles can't fully relax. Your nervous system can't fully downshift. Stretching creates conscious release. You're telling your body, through focused attention and breath, that it's safe to let go, that the day's stress no longer needs to be held. The areas that feel tightest are where you've been holding the most stress. These areas deserve extra time. Breathe slowly while stretching them. Don't force. Don't push. Just breathe and allow them to release at their own pace. 10 minutes of this and your body feels noticeably different, softer, calmer, more settled, ready for rest instead of holding on to the day. The third option is simple body weight movement, squats, push-ups, planks, basic movements that engage your entire body and create fatigue. This works differently than walking or stretching. You're creating physical fatigue that makes your body crave rest. 5 minutes of bodyweight exercises, just enough to feel your muscles working, your heart rate elevating slightly, your breathing deepening, and your body is ready to sleep. This isn't a workout. You're not trying to build muscle or burn calories. You're creating the physical tiredness that makes rest feel earned and necessary. After these movements, your body wants to rest, not because you're exhausted, but because you've signaled completion through movement. The activity cycle is done. Recovery can begin. Whichever option you choose, walking, stretching, or bodyweight movement, the key is consistency. Every evening, 20 minutes maximum. No skipping because you're tired or busy or it's late. Those are exactly the times you need this practice most. When you're most tired, most busy, most stressed, that's when your body has the most accumulated tension that needs discharge. Most people think they're too tired for movement in the evening, but they're conflating two different types of tired. Mental fatigue and physical fatigue are not the same. You're mentally tired from decision-making, screen time, and cognitive work, but you're physically understimulated from sitting all day. This mismatch is why you feel exhausted but can't sleep. Evening movement balances this. It doesn't add to your mental fatigue. It discharges your physical stagnation. After 20 minutes of movement, you feel more tired in the right way, physically ready for rest instead of mentally drained, but physically restless. And here's what happens over time with consistent evening movement. Your sleep quality improves noticeably. You fall asleep faster because your body is ready for rest. You sleep more deeply because your nervous system has discharged its activation. You wake more restored because you actually got restorative sleep instead of restless half-sleep. Better sleep means better tomorrow, sharper thinking, better emotional regulation, stronger impulse control, more energy for difficult work. The Stoics understood this connection. They didn't neglect their bodies while focusing on their minds. They recognized that the two are inseparable. A well-cared-for body supports a clear mind. A neglected body creates a scattered mind. Evening physical reset is body maintenance that enables mental performance. 20 minutes of movement every evening, walking, stretching, or bodyweight exercises. Not for fitness, for discharge, for completion, for signaling to your nervous system that the day is done and rest can begin. Your body has been holding tension all day. Release it tonight. Your nervous system has been activated all day. Discharge it tonight. Your muscles have been contracted all day. Move them tonight. Then notice how much better you sleep, how much clearer you wake up, how much more capable you feel tomorrow. The evening physical reset isn't optional, it's foundational, because tomorrow's mental performance depends on tonight's physical release. Move your body, clear the residue, prepare for rest, and dominate tomorrow with a nervous system that's actually restored instead of perpetually activated. Chapter 7. Environmental Design, Creating Tomorrow's Victory Space Tonight. Epictetus taught the dichotomy of control. Separate what you can control from what you can't. Focus exclusively on what you can control. Let go of everything else. You cannot control tomorrow's challenges. You don't know what problems will arise, what interruptions will occur, what obstacles will appear. But you can completely control tomorrow's environment, and your environment will determine your behavior more powerfully than your willpower ever could. This is what most people miss. They try to use willpower to overcome a chaotic environment. They wake up to a cluttered desk and try to force focus. They start the day with their phone next to them and try to resist checking it. They sit down to work with distractions everywhere and try to ignore them. This is fighting uphill. Your environment is constantly pushing you toward distraction, and your willpower is trying to push you toward focus. The environment will win. It always wins. Because environmental cues trigger automatic responses faster than conscious control can intervene. The Stoics understood this. They didn't try to overcome their environment with willpower. They designed their environment to support their goals. You're going to do the same. Tonight, before bed, you're going to design tomorrow's environment so productive behavior is obvious and distracted behavior requires effort. Right now, your environment probably makes distraction easy and productivity difficult. Your phone is within reach. Your workspace is cluttered. Multiple browser tabs are open. Entertainment devices are visible. Comfort is prioritized over focus. This environment guarantees distraction, not because you're weak, but because environments program behavior, and your environment is programmed for distraction. Tonight you're going to reprogram it. First, clear your workspace completely. Everything off your desk except what you need for tomorrow's first task. Not just organized, clear. Your lamp, your computer, the specific notebook or document for your first task. Nothing else. Every item on your desk is a decision point. Every object is a potential distraction. Minimalism isn't aesthetic. It's cognitive load reduction. When you sit down tomorrow at a clear desk with only your first task in front of you, your behavior becomes obvious. You work on that task. There's nothing else pulling your attention. No decisions about where to start. No objects triggering unrelated thoughts. The clarity of environment creates clarity of action. Second, remove all distraction sources from your workspace. Your phone goes in a different room, not just out of sight, in a completely different physical space that requires getting up and walking to access. Research shows that just having your phone visible even face down, even on silent, reduces cognitive capacity. Your brain knows it's there. Part of your attention is allocated to not checking it. This reduces the attention available for focused work. Physical separation eliminates this drain. When your phone is in another room, your brain can't monitor it. All your attention becomes available for work. Close all browser tabs except what you need for tomorrow's first task. Every open tab is a reminder of something else you could be doing. Every tab is an easy escape from difficulty. When you open your computer tomorrow, you should see only what you need to work. Nothing else. No email tab, no social media, no news, no entertainment, just your work. Third, create visual cues for your priorities. Write your 3 non-negotiables on a piece of paper and place it where you'll see it immediately when you sit down. Not on your computer, on paper, physical, unavoidable. This external reminder keeps you aligned with what matters even when your mind wants to drift to what's easy. Your environment should be pointing you toward your priorities, not offering you escapes from them. Fourth, optimize for discomfort in your workspace. This sounds wrong, but comfort enables distraction. When your workspace is comfortable, it's easy to stay there doing nothing productive. Your chair shouldn't be so comfortable you could relax in it for hours. Your temperature shouldn't be so perfect you could daydream all day. Your workspace should be comfortable enough to focus, but uncomfortable enough that you want to do the work and leave. This creates productive discomfort. You're not suffering, but you're not so comfortable that unproductive time feels pleasant. The slight discomfort motivates completion. Fifth, prepare your first action, not just your first task, your first physical action. If your first task is writing, have the document open to exactly where you need to start. If it's coding, have the file open to the specific function you're working on. If it's research, have the specific question written out and the search ready to begin. Zero friction between sitting down and starting. The smoother the transition from rest to work, the less resistance you'll feel. The less resistance, the more likely you'll start immediately instead of procrastinating. This entire environmental design takes 10 minutes. 10 minutes tonight creates an environment that pulls you toward productivity tomorrow instead of pushing you toward distraction. When you wake up and enter this environment, productive behavior becomes the path of least resistance. Everything is pointing toward work. Nothing is offering distraction. Your priorities are visible. Your first action is ready. You don't need to use willpower to overcome a chaotic environment. You just follow the path your environment has created. This is Stoic wisdom applied to modern challenges. Control what you can control. You can't control tomorrow's challenges, but you can control tomorrow's environment. And controlling the environment controls the behavior that environment produces. Most people end their evenings passively. They drift into sleep with their environment exactly as chaotic as it was during the day. Then they wake up to that chaos and wonder why they can't focus. You're not going to make that mistake. Tonight, before bed, you will spend 10 minutes designing tomorrow's environment. Clear workspace, phone removed, tabs closed, priorities visible, first action prepared, comfort reduced. Tomorrow, you'll wake up to an environment engineered for victory. And you'll dominate the day not through superhuman willpower, but through intelligent environmental design that makes productivity obvious and distraction difficult. The Stoics controlled what they could control. Your environment is completely within your control. Design it tonight, dominate tomorrow. Chapter 8, Philosophical Reading, Ending the Day with Wisdom. Seneca had a ritual. Every evening, after his wife had fallen asleep, he would read philosophy, not for entertainment, not to accumulate knowledge, but to realign his mind with principles. The day had pushed him off course. Irritations had consumed mental energy. Distractions had stolen attention. Small things had felt important, and important things had been forgotten. This is what days do. They distort your perspective. They make you forget what matters. They pull you away from your principles through 1,000 small demands and reactions. Evening philosophical reading corrects this drift. It realigns your mind with truth before sleep, so you end the day thinking clearly instead of ending with whatever random stimulus last grabbed your attention. Marcus Aurelius did the same. He read Epictetus before bed. He reminded himself of Stoic principles. He recalibrated his thinking. This wasn't passive reading. This was active practice. They were using philosophy to reprogram their minds, to replace the distorted thinking the day had created with clear thinking based on principles. You're gonna do the same. But here's what you need to understand. Philosophical reading is different from reading for information. You're not trying to learn new things. You're trying to remember what you already know, but keep forgetting. You already know that most of what you worry about doesn't matter, but you forget this during the day and worry anyway. You already know that you control your reactions, not what happens to you. But you forget this and blame circumstances. You already know these truths, but the day makes you forget them. Evening philosophical reading reminds you. 10 to 15 minutes. That's all this takes. One short passage from Meditations, one letter from Seneca, or one section from Epictetus's Discourses. Not a chapter, not multiple readings. One passage. short enough to actually absorb. And here's the critical part. You read it twice, slowly. First reading for comprehension. What is this saying? Second reading for application. How does this apply to my life specifically? Most people read philosophy once, quickly, and move on. They've read it, but they haven't absorbed it. It doesn't change their thinking because they didn't give it time to penetrate. Reading twice, slowly, allows the ideas to actually register. Your brain needs repetition and time to encode new patterns of thinking. After reading the passage twice, you write one sentence, one specific application to something you'll face tomorrow. This transforms abstract wisdom into concrete guidance. You're not just understanding philosophy, you're preparing to use it. For example, you read Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. First reading. This is about internal versus external control. Second reading. This applies to tomorrow's difficult conversation. I can't control how they respond. I can control how I communicate and how I react to their response. Right, tomorrow when I have the difficult conversation with my manager, I will focus only on communicating clearly and remaining calm regardless of their response. Now the philosophy isn't abstract, it's a specific behavioral guide for tomorrow. When the situation arises, you have a prepared response based on principle instead of reacting from emotion. This is how philosophy becomes practical, how wisdom becomes action, how reading becomes transformation. But the reading must be consistent. Every evening, not when you remember, not when you feel like it, every single night. Because philosophical reading isn't about accumulating knowledge, it's about maintaining alignment. And alignment requires daily recalibration. The day will pull you off course, every day. Irritations will make you forget what matters. Distractions will make you forget your priorities. Reactions will make you forget your principles. Evening reading corrects this drift, every evening. So you never get too far off course. So you wake up tomorrow aligned with truth instead of carrying forward today's distortions. Keep your philosophical texts next to your bed. Physical books, not articles on your phone, not apps. Physical books that don't offer distraction. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Discourses by Epictetus. The Enchiridion by Epictetus. These texts have survived 2,000 years because they contain truths about human nature that don't change. The specific circumstances change. The technology changes. But human nature, your tendency to worry about what you can't control, to react emotionally to events, to forget what matters, doesn't change. So the wisdom that helped the Stoics will help you. Same problems, same solutions, just different contexts. 10 to 15 minutes of reading. One passage, twice, slowly. One sentence of specific application to tomorrow. This practice ends your day with clarity instead of chaos, with wisdom instead of distraction, with alignment instead of drift. And when you wake up tomorrow, this clarity persists. You're not starting from scratch, trying to remember your principles. They're already active in your mind from last night's reading. When challenges arise tomorrow, you have prepared responses. When irritations occur, you have philosophical tools to maintain perspective. When distractions try to steal your attention, you remember what actually matters. This is what evening philosophical reading creates. Not knowledge, alignment, not information, transformation. The Stoics practiced this because it worked. Because daily philosophical reading was how they maintained clarity in a world designed to create confusion. You live in a world even more designed to create confusion. More distractions, more stimulation, more information, more demands, more everything. You need this practice even more than they did. 10 to 15 minutes. Every evening. One passage. Read it twice. Write one application. End your day with wisdom. And watch how this simple practice transforms your thinking over weeks and months. How clarity becomes your default instead of confusion. How principles guide your behavior instead of reactions. Evening philosophical reading corrects the distortion. Every evening, read tonight, every night, and dominate tomorrow with a mind aligned with truth instead of distorted by the day's chaos. Chapter 9. Tomorrow's Intention. Defining Victory Before Battle. Marcus Aurelius would visualize his day each morning. He'd imagine the challenges he'd face, the difficult people he'd encounter, the obstacles that would arise, and he'd prepare his responses in advance. But the evening version of this practice is more powerful, because you're defining tomorrow's victory conditions tonight when your mind is calm. So tomorrow you're executing a plan rather than improvising under pressure. Most people wake up and react. They respond to whatever demands attention loudest. They allow urgency to determine their priorities. They let other people's agendas dictate their time. By evening, they've been busy all day, but accomplished nothing that actually mattered. They've worked hard on the wrong things. They've spent energy without getting results that align with their goals. This is the cost of undefined victory. When you don't know what success looks like, you can't achieve it. You just spin an activity that feels productive but produces no meaningful progress. The Stoics rejected this reactive approach. They defined what mattered before engaging with the day. They established clear criteria for success. Then they organized their actions around achieving those criteria. You're going to do the same tonight before bed. You're going to define tomorrow's victory conditions so clearly that when you wake up, you know exactly what success requires. Here's what this is not: a to-do list. To-do lists are task inventories. They tell you what to do, but not what matters. So they create the illusion of productivity through completion of tasks that might be completely irrelevant to actual progress. Tomorrow's intention is different. It's outcome-focused, not task-focused. You're not listing everything you could do. You're identifying the 3 specific results that would make tomorrow successful. 3, not 10, not 20. 3 specific outcomes. Why 3? Because you can actually achieve 3 meaningful things in one day if you prioritize them ruthlessly. But you can't achieve 10. Attempting 10 guarantees you'll accomplish none of them well because your attention is fragmented across too many targets. 3 outcomes forces clarity, forces prioritization, forces you to identify what actually matters most instead of what's merely urgent or easy or comfortable. And here's the key: these must be results, not activities. Not work on project, but complete first draft of project proposal. Not exercise, but complete 30-minute workout without interruption. Not make progress, but finish specific deliverable. Results are binary. Either you achieved them or you didn't. Activities are vague. You can always claim you worked on something without actually producing a result. Vagueness allows self-deception. Specificity creates accountability. So tonight you write 3 specific outcomes. Be brutally honest about what would actually constitute meaningful progress tomorrow. Not what would be nice to accomplish. What would actually move your life, work, or goals forward measurably? Write them on paper. Physical paper that you'll see immediately when you wake up. Not in an app. Not on your computer. On paper where you cannot ignore them. And here's what makes this practice stoic. You're focusing on what you control. You're not defining victory as client says yes to proposal because you don't control their response. You're defining victory as deliver excellent proposal that represents my best work because you control that completely. This is the dichotomy of control applied to daily planning. Focus only on the outcomes within your complete control. Let go of attachment to outcomes that depend on external factors. When you define victory this way, you can actually achieve it. You're not dependent on other people's responses or circumstances beyond your control. You're executing on what you can control and accepting what you can't. The three outcomes should span different domains if possible. One professional outcome, one personal outcome, one health or relationship outcome. This prevents total focus on just one area of life. Tomorrow shouldn't be a victory only if work goes well. It should be a victory if you achieve meaningful progress in multiple areas that matter. For example, professional, complete draft of Q4 strategy document. Personal, spend 30 minutes of focused time with daughter without phone. Health, complete strength training workout and prepare healthy meals for tomorrow. These three outcomes, if achieved, make tomorrow undeniably successful, regardless of what else happens or doesn't happen. Email didn't get answered? Irrelevant if you achieved your three outcomes. Meeting got canceled? Doesn't matter if you accomplished what you defined as victory. Unexpected interruption occurred? Only a problem if it prevented your three outcomes. This creates immunity to distraction. When you know exactly what victory requires, you can evaluate everything that competes for your attention against that standard. Does this help me achieve my three outcomes? If yes, engage with it. If no, decline it, delegate it, or defer it. Most people can't make this evaluation because they haven't defined victory, so they engage with everything that seems urgent. They respond to every request. They allow other people's priorities to consume their time. When you've defined victory clearly, you have a filter, and that filter protects your time for what actually matters. But here's the practice that makes this sustainable. You review your three outcomes every evening. Did you achieve them? If yes, acknowledge the victory. If no, identify specifically what prevented achievement and how you'll prevent that obstacle tomorrow. This creates a feedback loop. Every evening you're learning what works and what doesn't, what obstacles consistently prevent achievement and what strategies consistently enable it. Over weeks, your ability to define achievable outcomes and actually achieve them improves dramatically. You get better at estimating what's realistic, better at protecting your time, better at executing your intentions. And here's what changes in your life. You start making measurable progress instead of just staying busy. Every day moves you forward because every day is organized around specific outcomes that matter. This compounds. One day of meaningful progress isn't transformative. 90 consecutive days of meaningful progress creates dramatic transformation. But you only get those 90 days if you define victory every evening. If you know what tomorrow's success requires before tomorrow begins, tonight before bed write 3 specific outcomes. Results, not activities. Within your control completely. Spanning different life domains if possible. Place this paper where you'll see it immediately when you wake. Tomorrow, execute. Protect these 3 outcomes ruthlessly. Decline everything that doesn't serve them. Tomorrow evening, review. Did you achieve them? Learn from what worked or what didn't. Then define the next day's 3 outcomes. Repeat. Every evening, every day. And watch how this simple practice transforms scattered activity into focused progress. How busy days become productive days. How time starts producing results instead of just passing. The Stoics defined victory before battle. You're going to do the same, tonight, every night, and dominate tomorrow with clarity about what success requires. Chapter 10. Strategic Shutdown. Closing mental loops to enable rest. Your brain is still processing work. Hours after you stopped working, mentally composing emails, replaying conversations, worrying about tomorrow's deadlines, planning next steps on projects. This is why you can't sleep well, why your mind races when you try to rest, why you wake up feeling unrested even after 8 hours in bed. Your workday never actually ended. You stopped doing work tasks. But your brain didn't stop working. It's still processing, still problem solving, still planning. And this prevents the deep rest you need for tomorrow's performance. The Stoics recognized this problem. They understood that work mode and rest mode are incompatible. You cannot be in both simultaneously. Your mind must completely shift from one to the other. This requires a deliberate shutdown, a conscious ending to the workday that signals to your brain, we are done processing, we are done planning, we are done working, rest can begin. Without this shutdown, your brain continues working indefinitely. And continuous work mode destroys sleep quality, which destroys tomorrow's cognitive capacity, which destroys tomorrow's performance. Modern psychology calls this the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain obsesses over incomplete tasks more than completed ones. Unfinished tasks create mental tension. They occupy cognitive resources even when you're not consciously thinking about them. So when you end your workday with open loops emails you meant to send, decisions you need to make, tasks you started but didn't finish, your brain continues processing these loops during your evening, during your sleep, fragmenting your rest, draining energy you need for tomorrow. Strategic shutdown closes these loops, not by completing every task, that's impossible, but by capturing them externally so your brain knows they won't be forgotten. Here's the protocol. 30 minutes before you want to be completely done with work, you stop all work tasks and begin the shutdown sequence. First, you do a brain dump. Write down every incomplete task, every pending decision, everything you need to remember, everything currently occupying mental space. Get it out of your head and onto paper or into a trusted system. This external capture relieves your brain of the burden of remembering. When tasks are captured externally, your brain can let them go. It doesn't need to keep them active in your working memory because it trusts they're recorded where you'll find them tomorrow. Most people try to hold everything in their head. Their brain is their to-do list. This creates constant background processing. Your brain is always tracking what you need to remember, always reviewing the list, always afraid of forgetting something. This background processing consumes cognitive resources that should be available for rest or for focused thinking, but instead they're allocated to remembering your task list. External capture eliminates this drain. Once everything is written down, your brain can actually rest. Second, you identify tomorrow's 3 most important outcomes. This is the intention setting we covered in the previous chapter. But in the context of shutdown, this serves an additional purpose. It tells your brain exactly what to prepare for while you sleep. Your subconscious continues processing during sleep. When you clearly define what tomorrow requires, your subconscious can work on relevant preparation. When you leave tomorrow undefined, your subconscious processes everything and nothing, creating anxiety without useful preparation. Third, you review any truly urgent items that must be handled before tomorrow. Not everything on your list. Just the items that would create genuine problems if not addressed tonight. Most things on your list aren't actually urgent, they just feel urgent. During shutdown, you separate real urgency from false urgency. Real urgent items get handled quickly. False urgent items get scheduled for tomorrow or later. This prevents the trap of just one more thing that extends your workday indefinitely. You handle only what's genuinely necessary. Everything else waits. Fourth, and this is critical, you perform a closing ritual. A specific, repeatable action that signals work is complete. This could be a verbal statement. The workday is complete, said out loud. This vocalization creates a clear boundary that silent thinking doesn't create. This could be a physical action, closing your laptop and putting it in a specific location, turning off your desk lamp, shutting your office door. The specific action doesn't matter. What matters is that it's always the same, and it always means work is done. This could be an environmental change, leaving your workspace entirely and not returning until tomorrow, changing clothes from work attire to evening attire. These changes signal to your brain that you've transitioned from work mode to rest mode. The shutdown ritual needs to be concrete and consistent. Same actions every day. Your brain learns the pattern. When these actions occur, work mode ends, rest mode begins. Without this ritual, the transition is fuzzy. You gradually drift from work to evening activities, but never fully shift modes. Part of your brain stays in work mode. That part prevents complete rest. The ritual creates a clean break, a definitive ending. Your brain shifts completely because the ritual signals the shift clearly. Fifth, and this might be the most important part, you protect the shutdown. You don't check work email after shutdown. You don't just quickly review anything work-related. You don't allow work thoughts to pull you back into work mode. The shutdown is complete, permanent until tomorrow morning. No exceptions. Every exception teaches your brain that shutdown isn't real. That work mode could reactivate at any time. This prevents your brain from fully shifting into rest mode because it's monitoring for potential work reactivation. Complete shutdown with absolute protection teaches your brain, when shutdown happens, work is done. Full rest is now available. This entire shutdown sequence takes 30 minutes. 30 minutes that create the complete mental shift necessary for restorative sleep. When you sleep after proper shutdown, your mind actually rests. It's not processing work. It's not worrying about what you forgot. It's not planning tomorrow's tasks. It's restoring the cognitive resources you'll need tomorrow. You wake up with a clear mind instead of a mind still cluttered with yesterday's unfinished thinking. But most people don't do this. They work until they're too tired to continue. Then they stop abruptly without any shutdown process. Their brain is still in work mode when they try to sleep, so they lie in bed thinking about work. They wake up at 3 a.m. remembering something they forgot. They sleep poorly because their mind never fully transitioned to rest mode. Then they wake up already mentally fatigued because they didn't actually rest during sleep. You're not going to make this mistake. 30 minutes before you want to be done with work, you'll begin shutdown. Brain dump all open loops. Set tomorrow's 3 intentions. Handle genuinely urgent items. Perform your shutdown ritual. Protect the shutdown absolutely. Your brain will learn this pattern. When shutdown happens, work is complete. Rest can begin, and your sleep quality will improve dramatically, because you're actually resting instead of continuing to process work during sleep. Better sleep means better tomorrow, sharper thinking, better emotional regulation, more energy for difficult work, higher quality decision making. Tomorrow is won or lost tonight. The Stoics understood this. They didn't leave the next day to chance. They prepared for it systematically through evening rituals that cleared their minds, organized their environments, and defined their priorities. You now have 10 habits that will give you the same advantage. Evening reflection to learn from today. You examine what you did well, what you did poorly, and what opportunities you missed. This turns every day into training for the next. Preparation ritual to eliminate tomorrow's trivial decisions. You lay out clothes, prepare breakfast, write your priorities, organize your workspace. 15 minutes tonight buys you 2 hours of focused morning productivity. Gratitude practice to train accurate perspective. You write 3 specific things you're grateful for, including 1 challenge. This corrects the negative bias that creates suffering from circumstances that are actually fine. Digital sunset to protect your sleep and attention. 2 hours before bed, all screens go into another room. You reclaim evening hours for reading, thinking, and preparation instead of surrendering them to algorithmic feeds. Mortality contemplation to clarify what matters. 2 minutes imagining your death reveals what's essential and what's trivial. This clarity makes you naturally prioritize what matters and naturally ignore what doesn't. Physical. Reset to discharge tension and enable rest. 20 minutes of walking, stretching, or movement signals to your body that the activity cycle is complete and recovery can begin. Environmental design to create tomorrow's victory space. 10 minutes organizing your workspace eliminates friction between waking and productive action. Your environment makes the productive choice obvious. Philosophical reading to end the day with wisdom. 10 to 15 minutes with Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, or Epictetus realigns your mind with principles that the day pushed aside. You end with clarity instead of chaos. Tomorrow's intention to define victory before battle. You write 3 specific outcomes that would make tomorrow successful. This creates clarity that survives tomorrow's distractions and urgency. Strategic shutdown to close mental loops and enable rest. 30 minutes to brain dump open tasks, set tomorrow's priorities, and perform your shutdown ritual. This allows complete rest instead of continued mental processing during sleep. These aren't 10 separate practices. They're a systematic evening routine. 45 minutes that transform chaos into clarity, reaction into preparation, scattered effort into focused execution. Most people end their evenings passively, scrolling, watching, drifting into sleep with their minds full of noise and their environments chaotic. Then they wonder why their mornings are reactive and their days are scattered. You won't make that mistake anymore. You will spend 45 minutes tonight preparing to dominate tomorrow, and tomorrow night preparing to dominate the next day, and every night after that. This is not motivation. This is systematic preparation based on 2,000 years of Stoic practice. The evening creates the morning. The morning determines the day. Control your evening, and you control your life. Most people try to control their days through morning routines. But morning routines fail when you wake up to chaos created by last night's lack of preparation. The Stoics knew better. They prepared the victory the night before. They cleared their minds. They organized their environments. They defined their priorities. They protected their sleep. When they woke, they executed what they had already prepared. No scrambling, no deciding where to start, no fighting chaos, just clear execution of a clear plan. You're going to do the same. Tonight, these 10 habits, 45 minutes, and tomorrow you will wake up to clarity, focus, and complete control over your day. Not because you'll try harder tomorrow, because you prepared properly tonight. The Stoics dominated their days because they dominated their evenings first. Now you know how they did it. Now you know exactly what to do. The only question is whether you'll actually do it. Whether you'll spend 45 minutes tonight preparing instead of drifting, whether you'll be intentional instead of passive. That choice determines everything, because that choice determines tomorrow, and tomorrow determines the next day, and the compound effect of that choice determines your entire life. Choose preparation, choose clarity, choose control. Now go prepare for victory.